Hey gang, welcome back to Embrace the Question. This is Bible study with me, and I'm late. Sorry. We're still in the book of Genesis, chapter 21. We're making really good headway. Seems like we've been on the story of Abraham forever. And he does take up a lot of the story of Genesis, a lot of the beginning. Genesis means beginning. Abraham gets a lot of airtime in the beginning. For good reason. He is the father of our faith, and what we're observing here is Abraham's faith walk. And does it resemble yours? Does it resemble mine? I think we can all say parts of it does. There are definitely some failures in Abraham's walk, and that makes me feel better because there have been failures in my own. But now we are in Genesis 21, and finally, Isaac, the child of promise, is here. All right, Genesis 21. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time of which God had spoken to him. What that's saying is that this is a miraculous conception, but it is not the same kind that we see with Jesus. This is not a child fathered by God himself. This is a womb opened up by God so that a conception can happen at an impossible time. Right? So it's still miraculous, but it is different. Verse 3. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, and as God had commanded him. Let's stop. The fact that Abraham circumcised his son on the 8th day speaks again to the covenant. The circumcision is the sign of the covenant, of this covenant. What's important about covenant? Covenant is to create something new from cutting. God cuts a covenant with Abraham, although he does not allow Abraham to participate. So Abraham gets to watch while God ritualizes both sides of the covenant, his own and Abraham's. So the sign of the covenant takes place on the 8th day. 8 representing what? New beginnings, a new creature, and that's what we have with this covenant, a new creation. It represents a swapping of self between God and Abraham. That's pretty neat. It's whenever you do a blood covenant, then you have one man's blood mingled with the blood of another man, creating a new blood, and all of a sudden, the new blood means you have a new being. That is what all of this represents, a new creature, a new being. So we're already drawing lines to what we know about the New Testament here. Okay, let's keep going. Abraham, verse 5, was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. 100 years old. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. I want to point out that verse 6 is Sarah rejoicing. She's not lamenting that everyone who hears will laugh over me. She's saying they will smile about me. They will enjoy what God has done for me. All right, who would have thought that Sarah would nurse children, she says to herself. Yet I have borne him a son. Let's go on. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. What day would that have been? Weaned would have been probably, I'm going to say 4 years old. Okay, but Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. So she said to Abraham, "Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be the heir with my son Isaac." And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his son. Abraham loved Ishmael. You can understand why. Ishmael was his firstborn, although not through Sarah. But God said to Abraham, "Be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you. For through Isaac shall your offspring be named. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring." All right, let's stop right there. This gets difficult because we're wondering why God is siding with Sarah. Most of us would look at this situation. It's obviously a blended family, right? And we have this squabble. We have Ishmael laughing, making fun of little Isaac. I think Ishmael's approximately 13 years older, so he's in his late teens now. He's a big boy. Isaac has just been weaned. So he is a little guy, and the big guy is making fun of the little guy. It sets Mama off. And Mama is not having any of this in her house. Her pride and joy is Isaac. And she has something on her side called covenant. God is doing something through this child of promise, not through Ishmael. Well, as it says, Abraham doesn't like it. He's upset. And I believe all of us fathers would be. Ishmael was who Abraham thought, I believe, God would fulfill this promise through. He had some hopes for a long time resting upon Ishmael. However, sometimes we get tired of waiting and we take matters into our own hands and we do something in our own strength out of our own intellect to fulfill the plan. And it doesn't work out as well. Sometimes it doesn't work out at all. And this applies to a lot of things in our lives. Ishmael represents the strength of man, while Isaac represents the miracle working power of God to bring promises about. We get a choice. We get to choose how we operate in our lives. There are a lot of good things we can do in our own power, but they are at best good. There are a lot of things that we never wait on long enough to see the miracle working power of God. That could have to do with your healing. That could have to do with any prophetic word that you may have received in your life saying you're going to meet the right guy. You're going to form the right relationship. You're going to get the right job. And we get tired of waiting and we go out and we try to reason our way through God's will for us and we make the wrong choice. And it's in our strength, not in His power. So that actually spoke to me. That was a lesson for me. Because in this particular case, what Abraham did in his own strength, he thought he was on it for about 13 years. He thought he had done the right thing. And then God shows up and says, "Yeah, I'm about to make your promise come about." And Abraham was thrown for a loop. Now we have strife in the family because Abraham's idea is warring with the promise. Abraham's idea is 17-ish year old Ishmael, 17-ish, and the son of promise has just been weaned. Maybe he's 4 years old now. There's strife in the family because what's done in our strength always wars with what's done in God's strength. What's done in our strength is always at odds with what God is trying to do miraculously in our lives. It's not an accident that Ishmael's mother, Hagar, is an Egyptian. She represents sin. She represents slavery. She represents a lot of symbols as we move forward through scriptures, all relating to Egypt. I'm not saying that she was particularly sinful or that she was in bondage other than she was a servant. But Egypt is the symbol of these things and are associated with Hagar, the fruit of Egypt. The fruit of Egypt here is Ishmael, and he represents the best that man can do, but it's not good enough. And we have, in this particular moment, God intervening, speaking to Abraham and saying, you better listen to your wife because she's right. The promise will go through Isaac. You cannot have a royal lineage through an enslaved genealogy, which is what we would do if we tried to make this all occur through the lineage of Ishmael. Does this make sense? So we've got God saying, Sarah's right. I am not only making a royal lineage here, I am making a lineage royal. And I can only do it through the son of a free woman. Okay, that is the really profound, to me, truth behind this passage, is that we have immediately a struggle between two brothers, which we will continue to see in Scripture, Jacob and Esau, and Joseph and his brothers, Jesus and his brothers. But there are many examples of this familial war. You could even say that we possess this same war, the war between the flesh and the spirit. One is doomed and the other is eternal and hopefully saved and hopefully living life, having life in you. But the flesh decays. One doesn't work, one does work. So we have this very close to home turmoil all the time. And it's always introduced by us trying to do things ourselves, us trying to reason out in our own understanding whatever it is. But look at this, verse 13. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also. Why? Because he's yours. He's your offspring. Why does that matter? He's the son of a slave woman. It matters because of the covenant. So you ever wonder why that, yes, our flesh decays. Yes, we get sick sometimes. Yes, people die that are close to us, and they're God-loving, people-loving, full of Holy Spirit people. Why do bad things happen to good people? Well, because of that war I was talking about. We're still a part of something that is ultimately being renewed and replaced, ultimately. But why do sometimes people get healed? Why do sometimes people get raised from the dead? Now, I know that some people out there may not believe that happens, but I particularly do. I know people that have witnessed this. And it's an amazing thing. Why would that happen? Covenant. Because she's associated with you, Abraham, and I have a covenant with you, then I will bless her, even though that is not my first choice. Why do things happen to failing systems? Covenant. You're in covenant. You're in a covenant person, Jesus. So this is big, this is heavy, this is pretty deep. Didn't really intend to go here, but I just got on a roll. So let's keep going and see what happens. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the child under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite of him, a good way off, about the distance of a bowshot. For she said, "Let me not look upon the death of a child." And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. So she's out in the wilderness. She's been sent away, and she's not doing too well for herself. She's dying. Her and the little one are in very much a lot of danger to the natural eye here. And God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Up, lift up the boy, and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. That is quite an amazing passage. There's several things that catch my attention here, and one is that God says, "I've heard the voice of the boy." The boy is the second son, the son not of the promise, but a son of Abraham nonetheless, and he possesses the sign of the covenant. He is circumcised. Hagar is, in this case, a bit of a mediator. She is simply on the scene. Why are you upset? Well, that's a rough question for somebody that's really upset for obviously good reasons. Things to her look bad. They are bleak. She doesn't expect to survive. If you've ever been in the wilderness, in and around the Holy Land, it takes a survival expert to make it there. You cannot just go out there and plan to live off the land. You have to have some know-how. This poor woman must have thought, there's just no way. I've run out of water here. God opens her eyes. What does that tell you? That there was water all along. He opens her eyes, verse 19, and she sees a well of water. So she fills the skin and everything is fine. But sometimes the provision of God is right in front of us and we cannot see it. I think that's pretty interesting. Let's keep going. And God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with a bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. That Ishmael was an expert with a bow, I think, is significant to some. We see a lot of symbolism with bows in Scripture. The bow oftentimes represents war and a warrior. We see it in the book of Revelation where the man riding the white horse has a bow, but no arrows are mentioned. Significant? Perhaps. Some would say that this boy, Ishmael, who becomes the father of many nations, most of them now are Islamic nations. So any symbolism with a bow might represent the kings of Islamic nations. He was an expert with a bow, meaning he's an expert at killing from a distance. That is an important skill to have, especially in the wilderness when you can't just sneak up on things. They can see you coming. So being an expert with a bow, or in David's case, a sling, also excellent at killing from a distance. It works both ways. These are great skills. All right, let's keep on with chapter 21. We're going to shift gears and talk about a man named Abimelech, or at least entitled Abimelech. Melech means king. So it's possible that we're talking about a man here that is entitled Abimelech, but we don't really know if that's his name or not. So we will call him Abimelech. Verse 22. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me that here by God, that you will not deal falsely with me or with my descendants or with my posterity, but as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me and with the land where you have sojourned." And Abraham said, "I will swear." When Abraham reproved Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servants had seized, Abimelech said, "I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today." So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart, and Abimelech said to Abraham, "What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart?" He said, "These 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I dug this well." Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Verse 33, Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines. This whole faith walk of Abraham is considered a picture of our life. We will go through times where we don't have a lot of faith. We will go through times when we have a whole lot of faith, where we are rescuing people, where we are being rescued. We are sometimes realizing covenants, making covenants. Abraham makes a covenant with a Philistine. That's how we know that Abraham is he's in enemy territory. Not really enemy at his time, but the Philistines, as you know, don't stay friendly. The world is not our home. Sometimes the surroundings here are not friendly. So that is the mirror image to what's going on in this story of Abraham in chapter 21. Sometimes people say that one of the signs of a covenant cutting is planting a tree, and they do that. In this case, Abraham did that. He planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba. Why so significant? Because tamarisk trees grow slowly. And Abraham was planting a tree that he would never see fully mature. And he knew it. He was planting it for his kids. It was a statement that he was making that my children will live here, even though this is Philistine territory, even though I am a sojourner here, they will own this. And they do. And so that was a statement that probably was missed by everyone except God and Abraham. Abraham, why are you planting a tree? That seems odd. You're not going to get anything out of that tree, Abraham. No shade there. I know, but we're going to keep it alive. Well, he knew something. And that was a sign, again, of the covenant that God had made. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to give you lots of kids. And I'm going to give you land. Well, that was Genesis 21. A very packed chapter. I think very interesting. A lot of things that maybe you might just read through and say, and just keep reading. But really a lot of significant things going on there that help if you understand the meaning. So I do hope you enjoyed that. If you saw some things that I missed, please don't hesitate to put those in the comments below. If you need anything, prayer, anything like that, comments below. And until next time, hey, I have got another video coming up soon on The Chosen, who is about to start season 3. That'll be interesting. I just saw the trailer for the first time last night. We're going to do a video on that too. So, hey, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.